Dust chokes the air first, thick and acrid, like the breath of a dying beast. It clings to your throat, turns every swallow to grit. Then the screams rise sharp, ragged, from throats raw with dust and despair. Not the clean clash of steel on steel, but something deeper, a wail that burrows into bone. You stand amid the haze, the sun a merciless hammer overhead, and the ground trembles under iron-shod hooves. Shadows flicker through the veil, armored forms on horseback, circling, endless. A woman stumbles into view, her silk robes torn, eyes wide with a terror that mirrors the void in your chest. She reaches out, fingers like brittle twigs, but the arrows whisper past, silent reapers. One finds her, she falls, the circle tightens. No escape, no mercy. This is the edge of the world, where empires bleed into sand, and revenge is a blade that cuts both ways. But wait, those shadows aren't fleeing, they're closing in, and the true storm? It hasn't broken yet. What you're about to hear involves accounts of sexual violence and mass enslavement, drawn from ancient chronicles that spare no detail on the human cost. These events shaped borders and broke spirits, but they are raw and unrelenting. If this pulls too close, step away. I get it. For those pressing on, we honor the lost by tracing the gears of power that ground them down, not to linger in the dark, but to see how one grudge forged a machine of erasure that echoed for centuries. From that choking plain, pull back. See the threads weaving this nightmare. Two titans, Rome and Parthia, locked in a dance of ambition and reprisal. This wasn't some fevered clash of madmen. This was a machine, oiled by greed, geared for glory, and fueled by the bodies of the innocent. The Battle of Carrhae in the spring of that fateful year, let's call it the turning point, when Marcus Licinius Crassus, the richest man in Rome, gambled an empire on a desert crossing. He lost everything. But his shadow lingered, a specter demanding balance. What followed wasn't conquest. It was accounting, tallies of heads, of silks stripped away, of lives bartered like coin. Parthia's royal women, guardians of bloodlines older than Rome's republic, became the ledger's ink. Historians debate the numbers, some say thousands, others swell it to 50,000, but the scale? Undeniable. It mattered then because it redrew maps in blood, humbled a triumvirate, and cracked the republic's spine. It echoes now in every unchecked grudge that escalates from slight to slaughter, reminding us that power's revenge always claims the voiceless first. Crassus sought gold in the east. He unearthed something far heavier, the weight of a system's cruelty, turning victors into monsters and victims into ghosts. Breathe that in. The empires weren't born yesterday. Rome, that sprawling beast of marble and iron, had clawed its way from a riverside village to mistress of the Mediterranean by the time Crassus took the reins. Picture it. 7 hills swollen with forums and aqueducts, senators in togas scheming over wine, legions marching in lockstep from Gaul to Egypt. By the 50 seconds before the common reckoning, Rome's reach spanned seas. Her coffers overflowed with tribute from Carthage's ruins and Mithridates' fallen throne. But beneath the triumphs lurked fractures, ambition gnawing at the republic's core like rust in bronze. Enter the Triumvirate, 3 men, each a colossus, binding their fates in uneasy alliance. Pompey, the conqueror of pirates, with his fleets and farms. Caesar, the upstart general, carving Gaul into legend. And Crassus Marcus Licinius Crassus, the money man, whose wealth dwarfed kings. He crushed Spartacus's slave revolt decades earlier, lining his villas with the auctioned spoils. Yet glory eluded him. No laurels for bankers, they whispered in the Senate. So Crassus turned east, to Syria's governorship in 55, eyes fixed on Parthia's fabled riches, spices, silks, the glint of Seleucia's spires. Across the Euphrates lay Parthia, the eagle's shadow. Born from the ashes of Alexander's fractured dream, this empire of horse lords stretched from the Caspian sands to the Indus fringes. Nomads turned kings. The Arsacids traced their line to steppe warriors who toppled Seleucid satraps 2 centuries back. By Crassus's day, Parthia hummed with caravan bells the Silk Road's pulse, ferrying jade from Carrhae and incense from Arabia. Her heart beat in Ctesiphon, a riverside jewel where Zoroastrian fires flickered in marble halls. King Orodes II ruled there, a figure forged in fratricide. Son of a murdered father, Orodes had slain his own brother Mithridates IV in a bid for the throne just years before, crowning himself amid the cheers of armored clans. Parthia's might wasn't in phalanxes or catapults, but in the thunder of hooves, cataphracts, ironclad knights who charged like avalanches, and horse archers, ghosts on the wind, loosing arrows in feigned flight. The empire thrived on loose reins. Satraps in distant provinces swore fealty but ruled as kings, their loyalty bought with gold and brides. Women wove through this web like threads of saffron, royal sisters wed to seal pacts, their harems not mere pleasure dens but vaults of alliance, stocked with daughters of vassals, veiled in silk and secrecy. The tension simmered for years. Pompey's settlements in the 60 seconds had sketched borders along the Euphrates, treaties inked with Parthian envoys. But Crassus saw opportunity in the haze. Parthia meddled in Armenia, that rocky buffer where kings flipped like coins between empires. Orodes wed his kin to Artavasdes II, Armenia's crown, pulling him from Rome's orbit. Crassus, scenting weakness, ignored the parchments. His spies, Arab guides with honeyed words, whispered of undefended passes, empty vaults ripe for the taking. In spring of 54, he crossed the Euphrates at Zeugma, 7 legions strong, 40,000 foot, 4,000 horse, a tide of red cloaks and glinting pila. Initial sweeps netted Mesopotamian towns. Zenobia's walls crumbled, Ichnai's gates swung wide. Parthian garrisons melted into the dunes, their scouts harrying flanks like gnats. Crassus wintered in Syria, coffers swelling with loot, dreams alight. But Orodes stirred. He wed his daughter to Artavasdes, binding Armenia tight, then dispatched his kinsman, Surena, westward, not the full host, mind, for the king chased glory in the north. Surena, that noble of ancient blood, traveled light. 10,000 riders, 1,000 camels heavy with arrows, 200 wagons for his own veiled train, no lumbering infantry, just the wind's children, bows strung like harps of death. Crassus wasn't forged in fire from the cradle. He was shaped by Rome's forge, slow, relentless, the hammer of necessity on ambition's anvil. Born in 115 to a senatorial house, Marcus grew amid the Republic's late bloom, when Sulla's proscriptions turned streets to abattoirs. His father fell to the Marians' blades in 87, a purge that left young Marcus, barely 20, scavenging his family's corpse for scraps. He fled to the hills with a band of loyalists, not as hero, but survivor, scraping coin from estates seized in the chaos. By 30, he'd crushed the Spartacus revolt, not with flair, but method, walls of fire boxing slaves into surrender, auctions of the chained padding his purse. Wealth became his armor. He bought senators' debts, snapped up, burned lots after Clodius's riots, built aqueducts that quenched Rome's thirst and his rivals' envy. Yet money mocked him. Pompey's triumphs rang with cheers. Caesar's Gaul dispatches flew like eagles. Crassus hungered for the same, a name in marble, eagles aloft. 2 blows bent him toward the east. First, the Whisper's Senate lounges, buzzing with his Spartacus windfall, as if glory were for soldiers alone. Then, in 55, the consulship with Pompey, a poisoned chalice, alliances fraying like old sail. Crassus turned to Syria, that frontier forge where Pompey had left garrisons thin. Parthia's gold called, but so did erasure of the slight. Orodes' marriage to Armenia's throne, a barb in his flank. He ignored envoys begging parley, dismissed Artavasdes' offer of mountain paths where Parthian horses faltered. Greed? Sure, but beneath lurked a colder calculus. Prove the triumvir's third leg unbreakable, or watch Caesar and Pompey eclipse him forever. In winter quarters, he drilled his legions, eyes on Seleucia's imagined fall. But the East doesn't yield to ledgers. It demands blood for ink, and then it snapped. Spring rains swelled the Balik River, but Crassus pressed south, ignoring Cassius's pleas to hug the Euphrates. Arab guides, those silk-tongued traders, led him into the waste, where grass whispered lies and horizons mocked. Orodes, fresh from Armenian vows, unleashed Surena. The Parthian host crested dunes like a mirage, cataphracts gleaming, archers' quivers endless. Carrhae waited, a dusty crossroads, its moon temple silent witness. Crassus's son, Publius young, fire-haired, eager spurred ahead, 5,000 Gauls at his heel. The clash came at dawn, arrows blotting the sun. Publius charged, only to find his wing enveloped, bodies piled as ramps for the next wave. By noon, his head dangled from a Parthian lance, mailed in mockery. Crassus, atop a hillock, watched the machine turn, his testudo shattered, Pila spent on ghosts. Night fell on slaughter, 20,000 gone, the rest a ragged flight to walls that offered no succor. Surena's triumph? Not blades alone, but the desert's complicity, turning Rome's iron into rust. The air hangs heavy that first dawn after the sands have drunk their fill. Dawn breaks over Carrhae's mud brick walls, but the light feels wrong, too sharp, like a blade testing flesh. You are among the remnants now, a legionary from the 10th, your shield boss dented, cloak stiff with a brother's dried blood. The city's garrison eyes you from the ramparts, faces gaunt under helmets, their fires meager against the chill. Below, the plain stretches empty, save for the crows wheeling over dark smears that were men yesterday. Surena's riders are gone, their hoofprints fading like bad dreams, but the echoes linger, the thrum of bowstrings, the wet thud of arrows finding mail. 4,000 wounded lie out there still, abandoned in the panic, their moans a faint tide on the wind. You shift your weight, the wound in your thigh, a dull fire, and glance to the command tent. Crassus huddles there, the man who promised Seleucia's gold, his eyes hollow as the aqueducts he built. Cassius paces beside him, that sharp-eyed quaestor, whispering of parley, parley, as if words could unspill the blood. The victim in this grind isn't a name, yet just a shadow in the haze. Call her Roxana, though names meant little in Parthia's veiled halls. She was 18 summers, daughter of a satrap from the eastern marches, her skin the shade of desert rose, hair coiled like the rivers of Media. Before the dust rose, she tended the royal gardens in Ecbatana's shadow, fingers stained with saffron from blooms that whispered secrets to the wind. Her laughter carried on breezes that cooled Orodes' throne room, where queens wove alliances in murmurs. Roxana dreamed of a match to some noble rider, her dowry a herd of mares, her legacy in the blood of kings. She knew the harem's rhythms, not prison, but palace within palace, where sisters schooled in lore and lovers in subtlety. Silk veils hid not shame, but strategy. Eunuchs guarded not virtue, but vaults of power. Orodes' court teemed with such women 50,000. Some chroniclers claim, though debate clouds the tally like sandstorms. Daughters of clans, brides in waiting, virgins pledged to seal pacts. Roxana, among them, untouched, her world a tapestry of intrigue and incense, until Carrhae tore it, thread from thread. Tension coils slow here, like a bow drawn in the heat. Crassus sends envoys under white flags, but Surena demands chains. The Parthian host encamps beyond arrow shot, their fires winking like eyes in the night. Drums pulse from their lines, throats, hides stretched over victory. Cassius argues retreat, slip to Antioch, regroup under Pompey's shadow. Crassus refuses, pride a noose tightening. We came for empire, he mutters, voice cracked like old leather. Days bleed into negotiations farce. Surena offers terms, Crassus in fetters, legions disarmed. A spy slips through at dusk, a Parthian groom, bribed with Latin silver whispering of Orodes' wrath, of harems emptied as reprisal. Crassus scoffs. There's silks for our steel, but doubt gnaws. Scouts report wagons rolling east, veiled figures, hands bound, driven like chattel toward Ctesiphon. Roxana's among them, her mare long seized, her veil ripped by a cataphract's gauntlet. She resists spits defiance in the tongue of queens, but a backhand silences her. The demand comes veiled, submit or watch your world burn. Crassus chooses fire. The act unfolds not in gore, but in the hush after. Crassus mounts for parley, Cassius at his heel, 500 horse in train. They ride into the Parthian lines, dust devils swirling like omens. Surena waits, that noble's beard oiled, his chainmail a second skin. Words flow, promises of tribute, borders redrawn. Then chaos. A Roman blade flashes, suspecting trap, and Crassus topples, sword through his throat. His head rolls free, eyes staring at the sky he chased. The escort scatters, cut down in the melee. Back in Carrhae, word spreads like fever. The general's gone. Cassius seizes command, ordering flight to the hills. But Surena's noose tightens. Wagons rumble closer now, their cargo unveiled. Parthian noblewomen, robes muddied, eyes hollow. Roxana stumbles from one, wrists raw, forced to witness the pyres lit for Crassus's slain. No blade touches her here, not yet, but the implication hangs. These are the spoils, the balance for eagles lost. The machine whirs on, indifferent. Word trickles back to Antioch like venom in a vein. Cassius arrives first, ragged, with 1,100 souls, a tenth of the host that crossed the river. He spins the tale in dispatches, treachery, not defeat. But the truth seeps through 20,000 dead, 10,000 chained, eagles in Parthian hands. Rome reels. In the Forum, mourners wail for Publius, Crassus's boy, his promise snuffed on foreign sand. The Senate convenes, voices fracturing. Blame the gods, the Arabs, the man himself. This wasn't about one fool's greed. It was the system laid bare, republic's hunger devouring its own. Legions, those hammers of fate, forged for hills and phalanxes, crumbled against steppe wind. Parthia's machine, nomad cunning wed to Persian pomp, satraps feeding tribute, clans riding as one, incentives gleamed, land for loyalty, brides for bonds. A modern echo whispers think colonial ledgers, where native daughters tallied as pacification, empires blind to the human toll. Cassius fortifies Syria, raids repelled, but the grudge festers. Orodes feasts on Crassus's head, molten gold in jest poured down its throat. Surena, slain by envy, his triumph too bright for kings. The wheel turns, and in the east, silks tear under Roman hands. Shift now from the victor's haze to the executor's shadow. You are Tribune Lucius Verres, a mid-rank officer in Antony's host, 8 years hence. The air in Media's valleys bites sharper than Syrian dust, laced with pine and the tang of horse sweat. Antony's eagles march again, 36,000 strong, vengeance for Carrhae burning in their ranks. Caesar's ghost demands it, eagles reclaimed, Parthia's pride cracked. You ride with the van, your cohort's banners frayed from Parthian skirmishes, the general's rhetoric still ringing. For Crassus's shade, we shatter their silks. The campaign's a grind, supply lines stretched thin, Armenian guides flipping like weather vanes. Artavasdes, that double-faced king, pledges horse, delivers dust. Antony presses to Fraspa, Orodes' summer hold, but winter claws in early, snow-burying fords. Parthian arrows find your scouts, their feigned retreats pulling legions into ambushes. Numbers tell the human cost. Cohorts halved, not by blades, but frost and famine. Whole villages emptied in reprisal, farmers' huts torched, their daughters dragged as spoils of war. Not 12,000, but echoes in the wind. Families vanished, hearths cold. The machinery hums here, gears meshing across the ranks. Centurions report to legates, tallies of grain and girls alike. Incentives dangle, a plot of eastern soil for the man who brings an eagle home. From Antony's tent, orders flow: burn what you take, break what you burn. A breather comes at dusk. By a nameless brook where willows dip like mourners, you dismount, share flatbread with a grizzled aquilifer. His eagle tattoo faded. He speaks of home, of a wife's letter, unread these months. Laughter cracks, brittle, over a hare roasting on spit. They say Parthia's queens ride better than our horses, he jokes, eyes distant. Irony bites. Beauty amid the barren, silk scraps fluttering from a saddlebag like fallen leaves. But dawn calls the machine back. Word arrives. Parthian wagons seized in a dawn raid, 50 cartloads from the royal train, bound for Ctesiphon. Veiled figures spill out, hands bound, voices a chorus of Media's tongues. Roxana's kin among them, a secondary Bloom sisters pledged to border lords, virgins untouched till now. No single blade falls. The act implies itself in the tally. Antony's clerks note them. 50,000 souls. Near enough, though scribes debate the sum. Spread the word. This is the system's reach, from forum ledgers to frontier flames. One escaped groom whispers south, to a merchant's ear in Antioch. The machine devours its own silk. Time fractures here, the rhythm quickening to a gallop. Snow yields to mud in Media's passes, but Antony's host frays like old rope. Parthian riders ghost the flanks, their cataphracts crashing like waves on rock. You, Lucius, clutch your reins tighter. The tribune's vine staff a poor shield against arrows that sing through sleet. Phraspa looms, its walls a taunt Orodes' seat, harems within, said to hold the empire's heart. Antony orders the assault, ladders against stone, but the king slips away, wagons thundering east. Pursuit turns to rout, legions bogged, supplies raised by Parthian torches. Numbers blur into horror, 8 legions lost, not to steal, but the steppes' vast indifference. Whole companies vanish, swallowed by dunes or driven to surrender. The peak hits at the Eryxes ford, that cursed river where bridges snap under weight. Parthian lancers charge from mist, iron hides gleaming, their bows loosing volleys that blot the dawn. You wheel your horse, orders lost in the din, and see it. The royal convoy, caught in the crush wagons overturned, silk spilling like blood on snow. Roxana's cohort tumbles free, 50,000 threads unraveling. Noble daughters, border brides, virgins of the royal blood, herded now by Roman spears. Slow it down. Feel the ford's chill seep through boots, the river's roar drowning cries. An arrow whistles past your ear, thuds into a wagon's side. A woman face veiled, but eyes like polished onyx clutches a splintered rail, her guard slain, body crumpling in red. She steps forward, not fleeing, but facing. A hand raised, palm out, the ancient sign of parley. Time stretches, hooves splash, a lancer reins up, his blade half drawn. Antony's banner dips in the melee, the general's voice a bellow over the ford. Take them whole, the king's blood for Crassus. No charge meets her, the implication coils like smoke. Lances lower, not to strike, but encircle. She falls to knees, veil slipping, revealing coils of hair like midnight rivers. The machine creaks centurions bark counts, chains clink in the wagon's wake. 50,000, near enough. The tally swells with camp followers, satraps' gifts, the harem's outer rings. Restraint reigns, but the horror peaks in silence. Bodies herded east, not to death, but erasure. Roxana's sister call her fleeting shadow slips a dagger's edge in the tumult, her choice a quiet crack in the gears. Blood blooms on snow, a single red bloom amid the white. The system stutters, just once. The crack widens at dawn's edge. Antony halts the pursuit, legions bleeding from 1,000 cuts. Parthian horns wail retreat, but victory sours, supplies gone, men murmuring mutiny. A legate rides up, face ashen. The wagons, half the prize, lost to the river. Eagles glimpsed, then swallowed by flood. Orodes' couriers flee with tails. Roman greed turned to grasping at ghosts. Back in camp, the captives huddle 50,000 souls, give or take, though chroniclers haggle like merchants. The overreach bites, chains too few, guards stretched thin. Whispers spread among the veiled, a eunuch's bribe, a loosened knot. 300 slipped the noose that night, melting into hills toward Ctesiphon. Roxana among them? No record says. But the break matters, the victim unyielding, the system strained. Antony turns west, tail between legs, his vengeance a hollow drum. The perpetrator, not one man, but the wheel. Triumvir's grudge grinding finer than any blade. Transition fades, snow to sand, rage to reckoning. What rises from the ford's mud? Not triumph, but the empire's long shadow, stretching toward a legacy etched in loss. Orodes outlives the storm, but his throne wobbles like a drunk on horseback. Surena's shade haunts him, that brilliant kinsman, beheaded for outshining the crown. Pacorus, the heir, leads raids into Syria, eagles taunting from Parthian lances, but Ventidius Bassus crushes him at Cilicia's gates in 38. Orodes withers, poisoned perhaps by his own son, Euphrates, who seizes the diadem in 37. A fratricide's echo. Parthia's borders hold, the Euphrates a bloody scar, but the machine hums on satraps scheming, clans carving fiefdoms from the chaos. Survivors? The chained legions scatter, 10,000 Romans per ancient tallies, herded to Margiana's wilds, building cities in exile, their Latin tongues twisting into Eastern songs. Parthian women, those 50,000 threads, most fade into Roman villas, their veils traded for togas, bloodlines diluted in the conqueror's bed. A few return, ransomed in Augustus's diplomacy 2 decades on, eagles bartered for silk-wrapped shades. Power shifts east. Antony's folly feeds Octavian's rise, the Republic's corpse cooling in Pharsalus's shadow. Long term, Rome learns the horse's lesson, cavalry swells her ranks, borders harden at the river. Ironic twist. Crassus's gold-mouthed skull, meant to mock greed, adorns a banquet where Orodes toasts fragile peace. The machine endures, but its teeth dull, grinding slower toward empire's fall. Flash forward, not to togas, but tweed and trowels. It's 1920, the Mesopotamian sun baking digs near ancient Ctesiphon, now a whisper under Baghdad's sprawl. You are Gertrude Bell, that indomitable Englishwoman, veils her own against sand and scorn, leading a British expedition, her notebooks crammed with cuneiform ghosts. The air hums with pickaxes, the team's Bedouin guides trading tales over tea. Bell kneels in a trench, brush in hand, unearthing not gold, but clay. A tablet, cracked but legible, etched in Parthian script. It speaks of wagons in 53, before the Common Count royal dispatches, tallies of the lost. 50,000 from the inner halls, it murmurs, taken by the Western Eagle's kin. No gore, just bureaucracy's chill. Names as numbers, fates as footnotes. Bell's fingers tremble not from heat, but the weight. She deciphers by lamplight, cross-referencing Plutarch's lurid prose with Babylonian ledgers smuggled from museum vaults. The find proves it. Not myth, but machine harem as archive. Women as pawns in a ledger's game. Her reports fly to London, igniting debates in musty clubs. Was Carrhae's revenge erasure or empire's tax? Bell, that bridge between worlds, humanizes the ink. They were daughters, not dowry, she scribbles, her voice a crack in colonial glass. Why does this tablet matter now? Unearthed amid mandates and maps, it mirrors our own tallies, refugee quotas and endless wars, women's bodies bartered in peace accords. One parallel grounds it. Think proxy fights in shadowed valleys, where superpowers tally collateral like ancient scribes, daughters vanishing into the metrics of might. Carrhae's lesson? Power resists not by swords alone, but ledgers, systems that count lives without naming them. Resistance flickers in the cracks. Roxana's kin, slipping chains. Bell's pen, etching ghosts into history. Human nature bends toward the scale ambition's blind grasp. Grudges long shadow, but it breaks too, in quiet acts. A loosened knot, a deciphered line. This teaches that erasure fails when memory digs deeper than graves. Universal, timeless. No machine outlasts the voices it tried to silence. The tablet, now in a Berlin vault, whispers still proof that the voiceless endure, if we listen, return to that choking plain, but changed. The dust has settled, arrows spent, the circle broken not by steel, but time's slow erosion. Where screams once tore the air, winds now carve canyons, unearthing bones like forgotten oaths. Crassus's shade wanders still, gold-mouthed mockery, but the women's echoes rise stronger, 50,000 threads rewoven into the empire's frayed hem. They were meant to vanish, silk stripped to symbols, virgins tallied as tribute in a grudge's grim accounting. But they didn't. Not in Babylonian clay, stubborn as riverbed stone. Not in Bell's notebooks, bridging sands to our screens. Not in the ledgers we keep today, where numbers bleed back into names. Their resistance? A quiet forge. Chains slipped in moonless flights, daggers drawn in Ford's fury, tablets buried against the forgetting. And now they're here, with you because you chose to listen, to let the machine's whine fade against their wind-whispered will. If this tale stirred something a crack in the gears, a name unearthed, drop it in the comments below. What grudge from history haunts you most? One voice, and we keep the wheel turning. In the end, empires crumble, but the threads endure, woven not in silk, but survival.